The sound of combat boots hitting concrete echoed through Building Charlie as Brick Mason's massive fist slammed into the metal locker beside Madison Cross's head, the impact reverberating like a gunshot. "Listen up, princess." His voice was pure venom, his 6'6" frame towering over the small blonde woman who'd just been cornered in the narrow barracks hallway. "I don't know what fantasy land you crawled out of, but this ain't some sorority house where daddy's money gets you a free pass." Behind him, Wade Garrison and Finn Crawford blocked both exits, their predatory grins widening as they watched their prey. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Madison's porcelain features, highlighting the fear that any rational person would feel in this situation. At barely 5'3", with delicate Russian bone structure and captivating blue eyes, she looked like she'd stepped off a magazine cover rather than into one of the Marines' toughest training facilities. "Maybe we should teach Barbie here some military discipline," Wade sneered, cracking his knuckles with audible pops that echoed off the cinderblock walls. The air reeked of industrial disinfectant and masculine aggression, while somewhere in the distance, the sound of other Marines going about their routines created an eerie backdrop to the brewing violence. But something flickered behind Madison's terrified expression, just for a split second, something that looked almost like calculation. Her trembling hands clutched a regulation duffel bag, yet her breathing remained strangely controlled despite the obvious panic in her wide blue eyes. What these three Marines were about to discover would turn their understanding of strength, fear, and deadly capability completely upside down. The beautiful princess they'd cornered wasn't just hiding her terror, she was hiding something far more dangerous. Brick's meaty hand shot out, pinning Madison against the cold concrete wall of Marine Corps Base Quantico's most notorious barracks building. Her regulation duffel bag hit the polished floor with a dull thud that seemed to echo through the corridor like a death knell. "ID, now." His breath reeked of cigarettes and cheap coffee as he leaned closer, using every inch of his intimidating height to maximize the psychological pressure. Madison's fingers fumbled for her jacket pocket, the trembling appearing genuine enough to satisfy the three predators surrounding her. Yet as she retrieved the folded documents, her movements carried a precision that would have caught the attention of anyone trained in observation techniques. The papers unfolded with military creases so sharp they could have been pressed that morning, each fold exactly where regulation demanded. Wade snatched the documents from her delicate fingers, his eyes scanning the text with the slow deliberation of someone who enjoyed having power over others. "Madison Cross," he read aloud, his voice dripping with mockery. "Temporary assignment for advanced combat training evaluation." He looked up at her with theatrical confusion. "Evaluation? What exactly are you planning to evaluate, sweetheart? How to properly fold fitted sheets in between manicure appointments." The laughter that erupted from Brick's throat was harsh and grating, the sound of someone who had never encountered a challenge he couldn't overcome through sheer physical intimidation. Finn shifted uncomfortably behind them, his conscience clearly warring with his desperate need to maintain his position within the group's hierarchy. The younger Marine's jaw worked silently, as if he wanted to say something, but couldn't quite find the courage to voice his doubts about what was happening. From his office window 3 floors above, Commander Hayes lowered his binoculars with the kind of careful deliberation that suggested whatever he had witnessed was both unexpected and deeply troubling. The veteran officer had served 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq, earning his position through competence rather than politics. His trained eye was cataloging details that the younger Marines below couldn't possibly comprehend. The way Cross maintained her center of balance despite being pressed against the wall, how her breathing remained controlled even under obvious duress, the subtle positioning of her feet that kept her ready to move in any direction at a moment's notice. Most significantly, the complete absence of the panicked responses that characterize civilians in threatening situations. If you're already burning with anger watching these bullies corner this girl, hit that like button now because you're about to witness something absolutely incredible. But here's the real question eating at me. Who is she really? Drop in the comments what you think her secret identity might be, because trust me, none of you will guess what's coming next. Hayes reached for his secure phone and dialed a number that existed in no official Marine Corps directory. The conversation that followed was brief and conducted in the kind of coded language that made civilian eavesdroppers think they were listening to routine administrative matters rather than something requiring the highest levels of security clearance. "Hayes here. We may have a developing situation. I need a complete background verification on recruit Madison Cross. Arrived yesterday for combat training evaluation. Something doesn't add up about her documentation. The response came immediately, delivered in the clipped tones of someone accustomed to handling sensitive intelligence matters. Understood, Commander. Maintain normal protocols but monitor closely. Report any developments immediately through secure channels only. Back in the corridor, Brick's patience was reaching its limits. The big Marine had built his reputation on quick resolutions to conflicts, preferring overwhelming physical presence to extended psychological warfare. "You know what I think?" he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more menace than his earlier shouting. "I think you're some senator's spoiled daughter playing soldier girl because daddy couldn't buy you into an Ivy League sorority." Madison's blue eyes met his directly, and for just a moment, something passed between them that made Brick's confident expression falter slightly. It was the briefest of exchanges, lasting perhaps 2 seconds. But in that fleeting instant, the predator found himself wondering if he might be staring at something more dangerous than helpless prey. Wade stepped closer, invading Madison's personal space with calculated aggression. These orders could have been faked by any halfway decent computer science major with access to official letterhead. Rich girls have connections, right, Princess? Daddy probably knows someone who knows someone in the Pentagon. The accusation was delivered with enough conviction to plant doubt in the minds of anyone overhearing the confrontation, creating plausible justification for whatever escalation might follow. Wade had perfected this technique over years of institutional bullying, always maintaining enough deniability to avoid serious consequences while maximizing psychological damage to his targets. Finn finally found his voice, though his words carried the uncertainty of someone testing the boundaries between group loyalty and personal conscience. "Maybe we should just let her get settled in first. Plenty of time to figure out if she belongs here after she's had a chance to prove herself through training." The suggestion earned him immediate hostile attention from both Brick and Wade, their expressions making clear that questioning group dynamics was not tolerated within their established hierarchy. Finn's face flushed with embarrassment as he realized his attempt at reasonableness had been interpreted as weakness by his companions. "Shut up, Crawford," Wade snapped. "This is about maintaining standards. If we let every rich girl with connections waltz in here thinking money can buy military credentials, we might as well convert the whole place into a country club." The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted the confrontation as Rebecca Chase rounded the corner carrying an armload of freshly laundered uniforms. The red-haired Marine from Ohio immediately assessed the situation with the sharp intelligence that had earned her recognition as one of the top recruits in her training cycle. "Everything all right here?" Rebecca's voice carried just enough authority to make the 3 men pause their intimidation campaign. She set down her laundry with deliberate slowness, her body language shifting into a protective stance despite being outnumbered and outweighed. Wade turned toward the newcomer with the predatory smile that had silenced countless previous interventions. "Everything's fine, Red. Just having a friendly orientation chat with our new princess here, making sure she understands the realities of military life before she gets in over her head." Rebecca's eyes flicked between Madison's pressed position against the wall and the 3 large Marines surrounding her. "Seems like she gets the picture. Maybe you could give her some space to actually get unpacked before the whole welcoming committee overwhelms her completely." The intervention provided Finn with an opportunity to distance himself from the escalating confrontation without appearing to directly challenge his companions. "Yeah, maybe we should let her settle in. There will be plenty of time for proper introductions during tomorrow's training sessions." Brick's massive frame tensed as he calculated whether expanding the confrontation to include additional participants was worth the potential complications. The corridor was becoming increasingly public, and his reputation for intimidation depended on maintaining the appearance of reasonable authority rather than obvious bullying. "Fine," he said finally, releasing his grip on Madison and stepping back just enough to communicate his continued displeasure without completely abandoning his dominant position. "But Princess here should remember that this is temporary housing. We don't appreciate civilians who think they can waltz into our world and change how we do business just because Daddy made some phone calls." Wade carefully folded Madison's assignment orders before handing them back to her with exaggerated courtesy. "Room assignments are posted by the duty desk. Try not to get lost on the way there. This place can be confusing for people who aren't used to military organization." As the 3 Marines moved away down the corridor, their boots echoing against the walls with practiced military precision, Rebecca helped Madison gather her scattered belongings. "You okay? Those guys have a reputation for being especially welcoming to new arrivals. Brick in particular seems to think hazing builds character." Madison's hands were steady now as she shouldered her duffel bag, the earlier trembling having disappeared entirely now that the immediate threat had passed. "I'm fine. Thank you for stepping in. That took courage considering the dynamics here." Rebecca studied the smaller woman more closely, noting details that casual observation might miss. The way Madison moved with economy of motion, despite having just endured a traumatic confrontation. How she positioned herself to maintain awareness of both the corridor and potential escape routes. The complete absence of the emotional breakdown that most people would experience after being physically threatened by multiple larger attackers. "You're handling this better than most newcomers would. Military families usually produce kids who adapt faster to this kind of environment, but you seem unusually composed for someone who just got cornered by 3 guys who could bench press small cars." "I don't like drama," Madison replied simply, her voice carrying a quiet strength that seemed at odds with her delicate appearance. "I'm here to complete my training assignment, not to make enemies, but I won't be intimidated into quitting either." The words carried conviction that made Rebecca pause. Most new recruits either crumbled under pressure from established bullies or responded with aggressive bravado that usually resulted in them getting hurt worse. Madison was displaying a third option that suggested experience with dangerous situations extending far beyond typical civilian exposure. Building Charlie's mess hall operated under the democratic principle that everyone suffered equally, regardless of rank or background. The industrial kitchen produced meals that were nutritionally adequate while remaining aggressively bland, served on regulation trays that had accumulated decades of accumulated wear and minor damage. Madison joined the dinner line with the same quiet efficiency she brought to every other activity, moving through the serving area without drawing attention to herself while unconsciously positioning herself to maintain clear sightlines to multiple exits. Her tray selection was methodical and practical, focused on nutritional requirements rather than taste preferences. She chose a table near the back wall, where her positioning provided protection from unexpected approaches while maintaining visibility of the entire dining area. The choice appeared casual enough to avoid notice, but anyone trained in tactical thinking would have recognized the deliberate nature of her placement. Military personnel rely on tactical communication devices with titanium cases, night vision cameras, and satellite connectivity for extreme conditions. The conversation at nearby tables buzzed with the typical mixture of complaints about training, speculation about upcoming assignments, and competitive storytelling that characterized young Marines processing their experiences through shared narrative. Most discussions focused on immediate concerns, upcoming evaluations, weekend liberty plans, and the eternal military pastime of criticizing superior officers. Madison had barely started eating when Brick's imposing figure appeared beside her table, accompanied by Wade and 2 additional Marines whose presence suggested this confrontation had been planned rather than spontaneous. The newcomers looked like they had been selected specifically for their intimidating physical presence, broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, and the confident swagger of people accustomed to winning physical confrontations. Well, Wade announced, his voice carrying easily across the nearby tables, despite his attempt at conversational volume. "Look who decided to honor us with her presence at dinner. How's the food, princess? Not quite up to country club standards, I imagine?" Madison continued eating without looking up, her movements methodical and unhurried despite the obvious threat posed by 5 large Marines now surrounding her table. The conversations at nearby tables gradually died away as other diners became aware of the brewing confrontation, phones discreetly appearing as people prepared to document whatever happened next. Brick leaned down until his face was level with hers, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that nonetheless carried to every corner of the immediate area. "You know what I've been thinking since our little chat earlier? I've been wondering what kind of connections it takes for someone like you to end up in a place like this. Because real Marines earn their way here through blood, sweat, and proving they can handle whatever gets thrown at them." Still no response from Madison, who continued methodically working through her meal, as if the intimidation campaign wasn't happening around her. Her breathing remained controlled, her posture relaxed, and her hands steady as she handled her utensils with precision that spoke of either excellent upbringing or extensive practice maintaining composure under pressure. Wade reached across the table with deliberate malice, flicking his fingers against Madison's tray hard enough to send a spoonful of mashed potatoes splashing across her regulation shirt. The white stains spread across the dark fabric like spilled paint, clearly visible to everyone in the immediate vicinity. "Oops," Wade said with exaggerated concern, his voice loud enough to ensure maximum audience for his performance. "Clumsy me. Guess you'll need to get that cleaned up before evening inspection. Wouldn't want to get written up for uniform violations on your first day. That might interfere with whatever special treatment Daddy arranged." The mess hall fell completely silent, except for the distant sounds of kitchen cleanup and the hum of industrial ventilation systems. Every person present was watching now, waiting to see how the small blonde woman would respond to this calculated provocation, designed to force either humiliating submission or angry retaliation that could justify further escalation. Madison set down her fork with the same careful precision she brought to everything else. She stood slowly, her movements controlled despite the food staining her shirt and the obvious setup developing around her. When she spoke, her voice carried no anger, no fear, just a kind of patient resignation that somehow made Wade's cruelty appear petty and childish. "Accidents happen," she said quietly, picking up her tray with steady hands. "I'll take care of it." She walked toward the disposal area with her back straight and her pace unhurried, the profound silence following her like a wake until she disappeared through the exit doors. The quiet lingered for several long moments after she was gone, leaving 5 Marines standing beside an empty table in a room full of witnesses who had just observed something they couldn't quite define or categorize. Lieutenant Amy Johnson had been watching the mess hall incident from the officers' section, her own meal forgotten as she witnessed what was clearly a coordinated harassment campaign against the newest recruit. As one of only 3 female officers at Quantico's advanced training facility, Amy had fought her own battles to earn respect in this aggressively masculine environment. The tactical precision of the bullying bothered her more than its cruelty. Wade's calculated provocation, Brick's physical intimidation, and the recruitment of additional participants suggested an organized campaign rather than spontaneous hazing. Most troubling was Cross's response, which displayed a level of emotional control that seemed inconsistent with civilian background. Amy found Madison 30 minutes later in the equipment storage facility, methodically cleaning potato stains from her shirt with focused attention that suggested neither surprise nor unfamiliarity with uniform maintenance under difficult circumstances. The storage room smelled of gun oil and canvas, filled with racks of gear representing millions of dollars in military equipment. "That was handled professionally," Amy said from the doorway, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned her rank through demonstrated competence rather than political connections. "Mason was testing your reactions, looking for weaknesses he could exploit in future confrontations. Most people would have either broken down emotionally or tried to fight back physically. Both responses would have provided him with ammunition for escalation." Madison looked up from her cleaning, taking in Amy's lieutenant bars and the kind of composed confidence that marked someone who had survived and thrived in challenging institutional environments. "How did I score, ma'am?" "Better than most recruits manage during their first week. Mind if I ask what kind of background prepared you for that level of stress management?" Most civilians find military hazing overwhelming until they develop appropriate coping mechanisms. "Military family heritage," Madison replied, her answer providing plausible explanation while revealing nothing meaningful about actual training sources. "My father believed that emotional control was essential for personal protection in dangerous situations. He was thorough in his instruction methods." Amy stepped into the storage room, her movements casual, but her observational skills cataloging details that most people would miss. The systematic efficiency with which Cross organized her cleaning supplies. The way she inspected her work with precision, suggesting extensive experience in equipment maintenance. The unconscious positioning that kept potential exit routes clear while maintaining awareness of Amy's location and movements. "Your assignment orders mention combat training evaluation," Amy continued. "That's unusual phrasing for standard recruit processing. Most people come here for basic instruction rather than assessment of existing capabilities." "Administrative decisions aren't my area of expertise, ma'am," Madison responded diplomatically. "I assume my background required different handling protocols, but the specific reasoning wasn't shared with me during processing." The conversation was interrupted by approaching footsteps as Dr. Ellis appeared in the doorway carrying his medical bag and wearing the expression of someone responding to an official request rather than making a casual visit. Ms. Cross, I'm Dr. Ellis. I understand there was a minor physical contact incident during dinner. Standard procedure requires medical documentation, regardless of apparent injury severity. Madison appeared puzzled by the medical attention. Physical contact? Someone spilled food on my shirt, but there wasn't any violence or injury involved. Insurance requirements, Ellis explained, though his eyes were already conducting the kind of detailed visual assessment that characterized trauma specialists. Any confrontational situation gets documented to protect both individual Marines and institutional liability. Quick examination, just to verify there are no hidden injuries that might manifest later. Amy excused herself but lingered in the corridor outside the storage room, her position allowing her to overhear the medical examination while maintaining the appearance of casual conversation with another passing officer. The routine assessment that followed revealed several details that Ellis documented with professional neutrality while privately noting their significance. Cross's muscle development was far more extensive than her slight frame suggested possible through civilian fitness activities. Her reflexes tested at levels typically associated with professional athletes or individuals with specialized physical training. Most notably, visual inspection revealed old scarring on her arms and shoulders, consistent with impact injuries from sources that normal civilian activities couldn't reasonably explain. Everything appears normal, Ellis announced after completing his examination, though his medical notes included observations extending far beyond routine documentation. Minor bruising that should resolve within 24 hours. Report any pain or stiffness that develops overnight. After Ellis departed, Amy returned to find Madison completing her uniform maintenance with the same methodical attention to detail. Dr. Ellis is very thorough. His background includes trauma surgery in Afghanistan, so he knows what to look for when assessing potential injuries. He seemed very professional, Madison agreed neutrally, though her expression suggested understanding of the subtext underlying Amy's comment about the doctor's specialized experience and observational skills. The evening progressed through the standard routine of personal equipment maintenance, study time, and preparation for lights out at 2200 hours. Madison moved through each activity with practiced efficiency, completing required tasks with precision while avoiding behavior that might draw additional attention from authority figures or potential antagonists. Her barracks assignment placed her in a room shared with 7 other women, each bringing different personalities and backgrounds to the confined living space. Rebecca Chase had positioned her bunk adjacent to Madison's, apparently having decided that protective friendship was the appropriate response to the earlier corridor confrontation. "You never mentioned where you're from originally," Rebecca said as they prepared for sleep. The overhead lights dimmed to minimum levels that allowed private conversation without disturbing others. "Military families move around a lot, but most people still identify with a home region. Northern Virginia originally," Madison replied, her answer accurate enough to satisfy casual curiosity while revealing nothing meaningful about her actual background or current circumstances. "Father was Navy, mother worked in defense contracting. Pretty typical military family experience. That explains the bearing," Rebecca observed with growing insight. "Military kids always carry themselves differently than civilians. Better discipline, automatic attention to detail, more comfortable following orders without making a production about it." The observation provided plausible explanation for behavioral characteristics that others had begun noticing. Madison's instinctive attention to detail, her unconscious positioning awareness, and her comfortable familiarity with military protocols and expectations. But as lights went out and the barracks settled into the relative quiet of nighttime routine, Madison lay awake with alert stillness that suggested sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her breathing remained controlled and even, providing no indication to casual observers that she was anything other than an exhausted recruit processing the stress of challenging first-day experiences. Are you starting to piece together the clues? Because that seemingly innocent girl is hiding skills that would terrify these bullies. Smash subscribe and hit that bell. You need to see how this confrontation explodes when her true abilities are finally revealed. In reality, her mind was processing information with systematic efficiency, characteristic of operational planning. The personalities and capabilities of potential threats had been cataloged and assessed for future reference. Exit routes from the building complex had been memorized along with alternative paths to key facilities and potential extraction points. Most importantly, The patterns of surveillance and investigation developing around her presence required careful management to maintain operational security. The encrypted communication device hidden among her regulation equipment activated with a brief vibration indicating incoming message traffic. The communication itself was invisible to standard monitoring equipment, utilizing quantum encryption protocols that would resist everything except dedicated intelligence agency investigation. The message was brief but carried authorization codes, confirming its origin from classification levels extending far above normal military command structure. The text painted a picture of rapidly developing situations, requiring immediate operational adjustments to mission parameters. Timeline accelerated, multiple assets compromised Eastern Europe, leak source identification critical within 72 hours, maintain cover until exposure unavoidable. Extraction protocols activated standby. The transmission deleted itself automatically after being read, leaving no trace of its existence in any system accessible to routine security monitoring procedures. But the implications were unmistakable. The careful balance she had maintained between capability concealment and mission advancement was about to become impossible to sustain. Commander Hayes spent late evening hours in his office reviewing information that officially didn't exist, displayed on computer screens connected to networks that bypassed normal military communications infrastructure. Madison Cross's surface documentation showed exactly what recruitment processing required: unremarkable background, civilian education, family military heritage, but no personal service record. But deeper investigation using resources available only to personnel with his security clearances revealed patterns suggesting professional identity construction rather than authentic civilian background. Birth certificates that were technically perfect but created using methodologies typically employed for intelligence community cover identities. Employment records that satisfied surface verification but couldn't withstand detailed scrutiny of actual job performance or supervisor contact. Educational transcripts from institutions that confirmed attendance and graduation, but whose faculty had no recollection of teaching someone matching her description. Financial records showing patterns consistent with covert funding mechanisms, rather than legitimate civilian employment income. Most disturbing was what Hayes discovered when he attempted to verify her family background through unofficial channels accessible to senior military officers. The supposed naval service of her father couldn't be confirmed through personnel records, despite official documentation that appeared authentic at surface levels. The secure phone on his desk rang with the distinctive tone indicating communication from outside normal command channels. The conversation that followed was conducted in language designed to sound routine to potential eavesdroppers, while conveying information requiring the highest levels of operational security. Hayes here. Commander, this concerns your current personnel situation. Are you prepared for detailed briefing? Affirmative. The individual under observation has background extending significantly beyond official documentation. Current assignment serves multiple purposes, some extending beyond your operational awareness. Continue standard procedures, but prepare for developments requiring immediate action. What kind of developments should I anticipate? The type affecting national security if mishandled. Your cooperation essential. Report anything unusual immediately through these channels, but take no independent action without explicit authorization. The communication terminated, leaving Hayes with more questions than answers, but clear understanding that the situation involved agencies and classification levels, extending far beyond his normal authority. The careful language and security protocols indicated intelligence operations, with implications for national security rather than routine personnel management issues. Morning reveille sounded at 0530 hours, cutting through darkness with mechanical precision, designed to produce immediate alertness regardless of sleep quality or duration. Madison was already awake and dressed when the announcement began, her bunk made with precision that would satisfy the most demanding inspection standards. Around her, the other women struggled through the disorienting process of military wake-up procedures, their movements clumsy with sleep deprivation and stress. The contrast between their obvious difficulty and Madison's composed readiness was subtle but noticeable to anyone paying careful attention to individual responses. Physical training began at 0600 hours in the base gymnasium, a massive facility designed to accommodate hundreds of Marines engaged in simultaneous conditioning activities. The morning session focused on basic fitness assessment, push-ups, pull-ups, distance running, and repetitive exercises designed to establish baseline capabilities for individual training progression. Madison moved through the routine with steady efficiency that appeared appropriate for someone with reasonable civilian fitness, but revealed nothing about her actual physical capabilities. Her performance was good enough to avoid remedial instruction, while not excelling sufficiently to draw special attention from training staff. But Dr. Ellis, positioned to observe the session, under the pretense of monitoring for potential medical issues, noted details painting a different picture than surface performance suggested. Cross's breathing remained controlled even during maximum exertion phases. Her exercise form was textbook perfect across all activities, indicating extensive previous conditioning. Most significantly, her muscle recruitment patterns showed efficiency, characteristic of years of professional training rather than casual civilian fitness. Wade Garrison had also positioned himself to observe the morning training session, though his motivations differed significantly from medical staff's professional concerns. His attention focused on Madison's movements with predatory intensity, cataloging any sign of weakness that could be exploited during future confrontations. "She's holding up better than expected," he commented to Brick, who was completing his own workout with aggressive intensity, designed to intimidate nearby participants. Most rich girls would have collapsed from exhaustion or started crying by now. Brick finished his pull-up set with explosive force, dropping to the gymnasium floor with enough impact to draw attention from across the facility. "Give her time. The pretty ones always think they're tougher than they actually are until reality breaks them down. I'm betting she requests transfer before the end of the week." "Maybe," Wade replied thoughtfully, though his expression suggested developing alternative theories about their target. "Or maybe Daddy invested in expensive personal training before shipping her off to play soldier. Rich families love purchasing advantages their kids can't earn through actual effort." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Master Sergeant Rodriguez, whose presence immediately elevated energy levels throughout the gymnasium. Rodriguez had earned his reputation through the ability to identify weakness and eliminate it via carefully applied pressure. His training methods producing Marines who emerged either significantly stronger or were eliminated from the program entirely. "Listen up," Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying easily across the facility, despite background noise from ongoing activities. "We're transitioning to practical applications today. Combat readiness evaluation. Everyone find a partner. We're running defensive scenario training." The partnering process revealed social dynamics that had already begun forming within the recruit group. Established Marines gravitated toward each other, creating alliances based on shared experience and compatible personalities. Newer arrivals found themselves paired with whoever remained available, often resulting in mismatched combinations that favored more aggressive individuals. Madison found herself assigned to work with Finn Crawford, the Marine who had shown signs of moral conflict during previous confrontations. The pairing appeared random, but Rodriguez's watchful attention suggested that instructor assignments were rarely accidental in military training environments. "About yesterday," Finn said quietly as they moved toward their designated training area, "that wasn't exactly my finest moment. Brick and Wade have this way of making you feel like you have to choose sides, even when you know better." "It's understandable," Madison replied without resentment, despite the humiliation she had endured. Group dynamics create pressure to conform. People make survival decisions based on what they think they need to maintain their position. Her response surprised Finn, who had expected either continued fear or justified anger. Instead, she was displaying mature understanding that suggested experience with complex social situations extending far beyond typical civilian exposure. Defensive scenario training began with basic positioning and situational awareness exercises. Rodriguez demonstrated proper stance, movement patterns, and reaction protocols, while pairs of Marines practiced techniques under his direct supervision. The instruction was professional and comprehensive, building skills that could determine survival outcomes in actual combat situations. When Rodriguez called for demonstration volunteers, Wade Garrison's hand shot up immediately with obvious eagerness. "Sergeant, I'd like to volunteer to work with our newest recruit. Help her understand how real confrontation situations develop and escalate." His smile carried predatory anticipation as his eyes locked onto Madison's position across the gymnasium, clearly planning to use the training scenario for purposes extending beyond educational demonstration. "Acceptable," Rodriguez replied, though his expression suggested awareness that the volunteers' motivations included elements beyond instructional enthusiasm. Cross, front, and center, let's see how civilian preparation translates to military application standards. The gymnasium fell quiet as Madison walked toward the demonstration area, her movements steady despite the obvious setup developing around her participation. Wade positioned himself with theatrical aggression, his body language designed to intimidate while maintaining the appearance of legitimate training exercise. "Now, Cross," Rodriguez announced to the assembled group, "Garrison will simulate an aggressive approach with hostile intent. Your objective is maintaining defensive positioning while looking for opportunities to escape or neutralize the threat. Remember, real combat situations require smart decision-making under extreme pressure." Wade began his approach with deliberate menace, his movements suggesting barely controlled violence rather than educational demonstration. He was clearly planning to use the scenario to deliver a humiliating defeat that would establish his dominance while maintaining plausible deniability regarding his actual intentions. But as he closed the distance between them, something in Madison's posture shifted almost imperceptibly. Her weight distribution changed by degrees too subtle for casual observation. Her breathing deepened slightly, and her eyes developed focused quality, suggesting complete attention to tactical details and threat assessment. The first contact came when Wade reached for her shoulder in what appeared to be standard grab technique taught in basic defensive training. Instead of pulling away or attempting to block, as most novices would instinctively do, Madison moved into the contact with fluid motion that redirected his momentum while maintaining her own balance and positioning. The movement was so smooth and natural that many observers missed its technical sophistication entirely. Wade found himself slightly off balance, his confident advance having been neutralized without apparent effort on his opponent's part. Frustrated by unexpected resistance, he increased aggression levels, attempting more forceful grab designed to demonstrate superior strength and technique. This time, Madison's response was more clearly visible to the watching group. Her left hand deflected his reaching arm while her right controlled his wrist, the combination creating leverage that allowed her to step offline and leave Wade grasping empty air. The technique was textbook perfect, executed with timing that spoke of extensive previous training in defensive applications. Rodriguez's eyes sharpened as he observed the exchange, his professional experience recognizing skill levels far exceeding what any civilian should possess without specialized instruction. The deflection pattern Madison had demonstrated was part of advanced combat training, typically reserved for special operations personnel or individuals with extensive martial arts backgrounds. "Interesting technique," Rodriguez commented, his voice carefully neutral despite growing suspicions about Cross's actual background. "Where did you develop that deflection sequence, Cross?" "High school self-defense program sergeant," Madison replied, her explanation plausible enough to satisfy surface inquiry while revealing nothing about actual training sources or duration. "My father insisted on comprehensive instruction. He believed half measures were more dangerous than no preparation at all." Wade's face flushed with embarrassment at having been outmaneuvered by someone he had intended to humiliate publicly. His next approach abandoned all pretense of educational demonstration, becoming a clear attempt to use superior size and strength to overwhelm his opponent through aggressive application of force. Specialized military life insurance covers combat injuries, PTSD treatment, and family education benefits for high-risk classified operations personnel. The tackle that followed was designed to drive Madison to the gymnasium floor, where Wade's 100-pound weight advantage would become decisive in determining the outcome. But instead of being driven backward or attempting direct resistance, Madison again moved with the attack rather than against it, using Wade's momentum and leverage principles against him while maintaining perfect balance and control. Her hip movement and precise timing converted Wade's aggressive charge into a controlled fall that left him on the padded gymnasium floor while she remained standing in textbook defensive position. The technique demonstrated understanding of combat physics at levels approaching professional competency. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the sound of Wade impacting the floor and whispered conversations among Marines who had just witnessed something impossible based on their understanding of Madison Cross's background and capabilities. Rodriguez stepped forward to halt the demonstration before it could progress beyond instructional purposes into something potentially resulting in actual injury. His expression revealed nothing about his internal assessment, but his eyes were conducting detailed evaluation reserved for situations requiring immediate tactical consideration. "Excellent spatial awareness and leverage application, Cross," he announced with professional neutrality, despite obvious questions raised by the demonstration. That hip movement showed sophisticated understanding of momentum redirection principles. Have you had formal training in martial arts or defensive tactics beyond high school programs? The gymnasium had fallen completely silent, with every person present recognizing they had witnessed a moment that fundamentally challenged their assumptions about someone they had categorized as helpless target for institutional harassment. Rodriguez's question was straightforward, but the answer would determine whether what they had observed could be dismissed as exceptional natural ability or represented something far more significant. Some jujitsu during high school, Sergeant, Madison responded, maintaining her pattern of providing explanations that satisfied immediate curiosity without meaningful information revelation. My father believed comprehensive preparation was essential for personal protection in dangerous situations. Wade climbed to his feet with his pride bruised, but his confidence clearly shaken by the unexpected reversal. The humiliation of being outmaneuvered by someone he had planned to dominate was visible in his expression, though he attempted to maintain composure appropriate to the training environment. Brick Mason had been watching the demonstration from across the gymnasium, his face cycling through emotions ranging from surprise to anger to something approaching grudging recognition that his initial assessment might require significant revision. "Lucky break," he muttered, though his voice carried uncertainty that suggested he didn't entirely believe his own explanation for what had just occurred. Probably been practicing that move since Daddy started paying for fancy self-defense classes. But other Marines who had witnessed the demonstration were less willing to dismiss the evidence as coincidence or purchased advantages. Conversations erupted throughout the gymnasium as people tried to process implications of watching someone they had dismissed as helpless demonstrate capabilities surpassing anything most of them could execute successfully. The remainder of the morning training session proceeded with notably different social dynamics. Madison continued participating in exercises with the same quiet efficiency, but the casual dismissal and open hostility she had faced previously was replaced by cautious observation and respectful distance from most participants. Word of the demonstration spread throughout the facility with characteristic speed of closed communities where information served as primary social currency. By lunchtime, everyone at Quantico's advanced training facility had heard some version of the story about the beautiful blonde recruit who had embarrassed Wade Garrison during combat demonstration. During the meal break, Commander Hayes received additional information through secure channels that painted an increasingly complex picture of the situation developing within his command. The communication came through encrypted networks, bypassing normal military infrastructure, delivered by someone whose authority extended far beyond typical chain-of-command protocols. "Commander, we need to discuss recent developments regarding your current personnel situation. Are you secure for detailed briefing?" "Affirmative. Proceed." The individual under observation has background extending significantly beyond official documentation. Recent demonstrations suggest capabilities inconsistent with stated training sources. Maintain normal protocols, but prepare for rapid situation evolution. What specific developments should I anticipate? Potential exposure of classified operations if current trajectory continues. Your facility may be serving purposes extending beyond routine training. Continue observation, but take no independent action without explicit authorization from this source. The communication terminated, leaving Hayes with growing understanding that whatever was happening at his facility involved national security implications, extending far beyond personnel management or training irregularities. That afternoon brought weapons familiarization instruction, conducted in the facility's indoor range under supervision of Master Gunnery Sergeant Patricia Williams. Williams had built her reputation on teaching precision marksmanship to Marines whose survival might depend on making accurate shots under extreme stress conditions. Her instruction combining technical expertise with psychological preparation for combat pressure. "Today we begin with fundamental weapons handling," Williams announced as recruits assembled in the range facility. "For those with previous experience, this serves as review and standardization. For everyone else, this introduces tools that could save your life or the lives of others. Pay attention, ask questions, and follow safety protocols without exception." The instruction began with disassembled weapons displayed on tables for inspection and manipulation. Marines were required to identify components, understand their functions, and demonstrate proper handling procedures before advancing to complete weapons systems. Madison approached her assigned table with the same focused attention she brought to all training activities. The weapon components were arranged with military precision, each piece occupying its designated position according to protocols refined through decades of instructional experience. Williams positioned herself to observe as Madison began the inspection process, noting details that most recruits missed during initial exposure. Cross's component handling suggested familiarity extending far beyond casual civilian experience. Her finger placement was correct for each piece, her manipulation smooth and confident, and her identification of functions accurate to technical specifications. "Cross!" Williams called out, her voice carrying across the range facility. "Front and center for demonstration purposes. Show the group proper field stripping procedure for the M4 carbine." The request appeared routine enough to avoid drawing special attention, though several Marines noted that Williams typically selected her most experienced personnel for demonstration duties rather than newest arrivals. Madison approached the instructor's table where a complete M4 carbine waited alongside regulation disassembly equipment. "Safety verification first," Williams instructed, though her eyes noted how Cross automatically confirmed clear chamber and safe selector position without prompting or hesitation. "Then proceed with standard field stripping according to technical manual specifications." What followed was visible to everyone in the range facility and impossible to dismiss as coincidence or exceptional beginner's luck. Madison's hands moved with mechanical precision, each motion flowing into the next, without hesitation or uncertainty of any kind. The weapon disassembled in seconds, each component placed in its proper position with automatic muscle memory, suggesting countless previous repetitions. "Time!" Williams announced, consulting her stopwatch with an expression revealing nothing about her internal assessment. 38 seconds. Exceptional performance for someone with limited previous experience. But 38 seconds wasn't exceptional for a beginner. It was competitive time for advanced Marines with years of experience, and outstanding time for someone whose supposed weapons exposure consisted of high school civilian programs. The other recruits exchanged meaningful glances, reflecting growing awareness that something about Madison Cross didn't align with her stated background or documented training sources. Blake Miller had been monitoring the weapons demonstration from his position at the range control station, his fingers moving across keyboard interfaces connecting him to database systems extending far beyond typical Marine training networks. As the facility's senior technical specialist, Blake possessed security clearances providing access to information systems that most personnel couldn't imagine existed. The queries Blake initiated during the demonstration were carefully structured to avoid triggering automatic monitoring while gathering intelligence from sources requiring specific authorization codes. What he discovered confirmed suspicions that had been building since Cross's arrival, painting a picture that explained much while raising even more troubling questions about her actual identity and mission. Cross's official records continued showing exactly what recruitment processing required: ordinary civilian background, appropriate family heritage, no military connections beyond documented parental service. But metadata analysis revealed patterns suggesting professional identity construction rather than authentic biographical development. Document creation dates that postdated supposed educational milestones by significant margins. Authentication protocols originating from systems typically used for intelligence community cover identity establishment. Financial transaction patterns consistent with covert operational funding rather than legitimate civilian employment income. Most disturbing was what Blake discovered when he attempted verification of educational background through channels available to personnel with his clearance levels. The institution's confirmed attendance and graduation as official records indicated, but deeper investigation revealed that several supposed instructors had no recollection of teaching anyone matching her description or academic focus. Course enrollment records showed attendance, but specific classes she had supposedly completed included training elements typically reserved for law enforcement or military personnel with specialized mission requirements. The pattern suggested cover identity construction at levels requiring resources and expertise extending far beyond individual capability. Blake documented his findings in files existing only on isolated systems, protected by encryption protocols designed to resist everything except dedicated intelligence agency investigation. The information painted a picture of someone whose background was far more complex and potentially dangerous than anyone at the facility currently suspected. As the afternoon training concluded, Madison found herself approached by Master Gunnery Sergeant Williams under the pretense of discussing her performance during the weapons demonstration. The conversation occurred in Williams's office, a space decorated with competition trophies, commendation certificates, and photographs documenting 2 decades of marksmanship instruction excellence. Your weapons handling demonstrates exceptional familiarity for someone with limited documented background, Williams began, her tone maintaining professional neutrality despite obvious questions underlying her assessment. Military families sometimes provide more comprehensive training than official records acknowledge. Would you care to elaborate on your actual experience levels? My father was thorough in his approach to personal protection preparation, Madison replied, her response structured to provide plausible explanation without meaningful information disclosure. He believed that inadequate training was more dangerous than no training when it came to defensive capabilities and personal safety. Williams nodded thoughtfully, her expression suggesting acceptance of the explanation, while her observational skills continued cataloging details that didn't completely align with stated background. Understood. Your demonstration suggests his instruction was comprehensive and professionally conducted. We'll arrange advanced placement evaluation to ensure you're challenged appropriately during your time here. Military legal consultants provide confidential UCMJ guidance for security clearance reviews and classified operation incident proceedings. The offer represented both opportunity and potential trap, designed to reveal additional capabilities while maintaining appearance of routine training progression. Madison recognized the tactical nature of Williams's suggestion, while understanding that declining would raise as many questions as accepting the evaluation. I appreciate the opportunity, Sergeant. Whatever training level you determine is appropriate, based on demonstrated capabilities. As evening approached, the network of surveillance and investigation surrounding Madison had expanded to include personnel whose involvement suggested coordination at levels extending far beyond routine recruit processing procedures. Commander Hayes had received multiple additional secure communications, each providing information that deepened rather than resolved questions surrounding Cross's presence and actual mission. Dr. Ellis had submitted medical assessment reports documenting physical capabilities inconsistent with civilian background claims. Blake's technical analysis had identified documentation anomalies requiring further investigation through specialized channels. Williams' weapons training evaluation had revealed skills demanding advanced placement and closer monitoring throughout remaining training periods. Most significantly, intercepted communications suggested that intelligence assets were mobilizing to investigate potential security breaches, originating from within Marine training communities. The investigation was being coordinated by agencies whose involvement indicated national security implications extending far beyond individual recruit background verification issues. That evening, as Madison prepared for sleep in the barracks she shared with 7 other women, her encrypted communication device received a message that fundamentally altered operational timelines and mission parameters. The transmission was brief but carried authorization codes confirming its origin from the highest levels of the intelligence community hierarchy. Mission parameters require immediate acceleration, target identification essential within 48 hours, maintain operational cover until exposure becomes unavoidable. Emergency extraction protocols now active and standing by for immediate deployment. The message automatically deleted after being read, leaving no trace of its existence in any system accessible to routine security monitoring procedures. But the implications were unmistakable. The careful balance she had maintained between capability concealment and mission advancement was about to collapse entirely. In the darkness of the barracks, surrounded by women whose primary concern involved surviving basic training challenges, Madison began mental preparation for operations that could determine whether classified intelligence networks remained secure or whether enemy infiltration had progressed beyond containment possibilities. The investigation she was conducting had reached critical juncture points, while the investigation being conducted against her was approaching conclusions that could compromise everything she had been deployed to protect. Tomorrow would bring confrontations that would test not only her ability to maintain operational security, but whether her mission could be completed before her cover was blown entirely. Outside the barracks windows, the first hints of dawn were beginning to show against the horizon, signaling the approach of a day that would change everything for everyone involved in what had appeared to be routine military training, but was rapidly revealing itself as something far more complex and dangerous than anyone had initially understood or anticipated. The sound of boots on concrete and whispered conversations in the corridor suggested that others were also preparing for developments that extended far beyond normal training schedules. The careful balance that had characterized the past 48 hours was about to shift dramatically, and everyone involved would soon discover exactly what happens when classified operations collide with military training environments in ways that threaten to expose secrets that nations fight wars to protect. Morning reveille at 0530 hours found Madison already conducting equipment inspection with methodical precision that would have impressed the most demanding drill instructor. Her bunk was hospital corner perfect, her gear arranged in patterns that spoke of muscle memory, developed through years rather than days of military exposure. Rebecca stirred in the adjacent bunk, her movement sluggish with sleep deprivation. "How long have you been awake?" she whispered, noting Madison's complete readiness despite the early hour. "Sleep comes and goes," Madison replied diplomatically, though her alert posture suggested she had been conducting surveillance rather than resting. "Figured I might as well be productive with the time." The morning's training schedule called for advanced weapons assessment, conducted in the facility's secure armory under supervision of personnel whose security clearances extended far beyond typical Marine instruction requirements. The session would test not just basic competency, but tactical thinking and stress response under simulated combat conditions. Master Sergeant Rodriguez addressed the assembled group with the kind of focused intensity that characterized combat veterans preparing Marines for life-and-death situations. "Today we determine who has potential for advanced placement and who requires additional foundational work. Performance will be evaluated on technical proficiency, decision-making under pressure, and adaptation to unexpected variables." The assessment began with timed weapons assembly under increasing levels of distraction, strobe lights, loud noises, and verbal pressure designed to simulate combat stress. Madison moved through the exercise with fluid efficiency that appeared appropriate for someone with reasonable preparation, though careful observers might have noticed how the environmental stressors had no visible effect on her performance. Wade Garrison positioned himself at a station adjacent to Madison's, his competitive instincts driving him to use the assessment as an opportunity for public vindication after yesterday's humiliation. "Let's see how Princess handles real pressure," he muttered to Brick, who was conducting his own preparation with aggressive intensity. The first phase proceeded without incident, with Madison completing her assembly within normal parameters while avoiding any demonstration that might reveal advanced capabilities. But as the assessment progressed to tactical scenarios requiring split-second decision-making, maintaining her careful balance became increasingly difficult. "Cross," Rodriguez called out, as the group transitioned to simulation exercises. "You're partnered with Garrison for close-quarters engagement scenarios. Demonstrate proper defensive positioning while maintaining awareness of multiple threat vectors." The pairing was clearly intentional, designed to test not just technical skills, but psychological resilience under targeted pressure from someone with obvious personal motivations for aggressive engagement. Wade's approach to the exercise abandoned any pretense of educational demonstration, becoming a clear attempt to use superior size and training to deliver decisive defeat that would restore his damaged reputation. His movements carried predatory confidence as he circled Madison in the confined training space. "Remember what happened yesterday, sweetheart?" Wade's voice carried enough menace to make nearby observers uncomfortable. "That was just a warm-up. Time to show everyone what happens when civilians try to play in our world." But as Wade committed to his attack, a complex grappling technique designed to quickly establish dominant control, something fundamental shifted in Madison's response pattern. Instead of the careful defensive measures she had displayed previously, her counter-movement demonstrated skills that no civilian training could reasonably explain. The reversal was executed with surgical precision, using Wade's momentum and leverage against him while demonstrating joint manipulation techniques that required years of specialized instruction to master safely. Within seconds, Wade found himself controlled in a submission hold that could have caused serious injury if applied with full force. The training room fell completely silent as every observer recognized they had witnessed something far beyond the boundaries of reasonable coincidence. Madison released the hold immediately, helping Wade to his feet with professional courtesy that somehow made her display of superior capability even more impressive. Rodriguez stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral, despite the obvious questions raised by the demonstration. Outstanding technique, Cross. That joint manipulation sequence requires advanced training to execute safely. Where exactly did you develop that level of proficiency? Before Madison could formulate another deflection about high school programs, the training room door opened to admit Commander Hayes, accompanied by two individuals whose presence immediately elevated the tension level throughout the facility. If your heart is pounding right now, you're not alone. What's about to be revealed will shock every single person in that room. Make sure you're subscribed, because this level of jaw-dropping revelation doesn't happen every day. The first newcomer was a woman in her 50s, wearing civilian clothes that couldn't disguise her military bearing, and the kind of confident authority that characterized senior intelligence personnel. The second was a Marine colonel whose ribbons and decorations indicated special operations experience at the highest levels. "Continue with normal training," Hayes announced, though his eyes were conducting detailed observation of Madison's position and the reactions of everyone present. "We are conducting routine evaluation assessments." But nothing about the situation felt routine. The newcomers positioned themselves to observe Madison specifically, their professional attention focused on details that suggested prior knowledge rather than casual interest. Madison recognized the tactical nature of her situation, while understanding that any dramatic reaction would confirm suspicions that were clearly already developing. She maintained her position in the training area, waiting for Rodriguez to continue the assessment, while internally calculating exit routes and response options. "Cross," the female civilian called out, her voice carrying unmistakable authority despite her unofficial status. "Step forward for individual evaluation." The request was phrased as routine instruction, but everyone present recognized it as something far more significant. Madison walked toward the observation area with steady composure, her movements controlled despite the obvious shift in situation dynamics. "I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the Department of Defense," the woman announced, her introduction providing official justification for what was clearly an investigation rather than routine evaluation. "Your recent performance has been noted by personnel responsible for advanced placement decisions." The explanation was plausible enough to satisfy casual observers while conveying additional meaning to anyone with appropriate clearance levels. Madison recognized the coded language while maintaining her cover identity, despite growing pressure to reveal her actual mission parameters. "Colonel James Parker, Special Operations Command," the Marine officer added, his presence lending additional weight to whatever was developing. "We're interested in discussing potential advanced training opportunities for personnel who demonstrate exceptional capabilities." The offer was both opportunity and trap, designed to force Madison into choices that would either reveal her true background or compromise her operational effectiveness. She recognized the tactical nature of the situation while understanding that her response would determine how events proceeded. "I'm honored by your interest," Madison replied carefully, her answer structured to acknowledge their authority while revealing nothing about actual capabilities or mission objectives. "Whatever opportunities you determine are appropriate based on demonstrated performance." Dr. Mitchell exchanged meaningful glances with Colonel Parker before continuing her evaluation. "Your recent demonstrations suggest familiarity with techniques typically associated with specialized training programs. Our interest extends to understanding the sources of that preparation." The questioning was becoming increasingly direct, though still maintaining plausible cover for routine evaluation procedures. Madison understood that her deflection strategies were becoming insufficient to maintain operational security under this level of scrutiny. "Military family background provided comprehensive preparation," Madison responded, maintaining her established spectrum while recognizing its growing inadequacy. "My father believed thorough instruction was essential for personal protection in dangerous environments." "Indeed," Dr. Mitchell agreed, though her expression suggested awareness that the explanation was insufficient for the capabilities that had been observed. "We'd be interested in discussing your father's background and training methodologies in greater detail." The conversation was interrupted by sudden commotion from the corridor outside the training room. Urgent radio chatter indicated developing situation, requiring immediate attention from facility security personnel. Hayes received rapid updates through his communication earpiece, his expression growing increasingly concerned. "Dr. Mitchell, Colonel Parker," Hayes announced with obvious reluctance to interrupt their evaluation. "We have a security situation requiring immediate command attention. All personnel need to report to designated assembly areas for accountability verification." The announcement provided temporary relief from investigation pressure while creating new complications for operational security. Madison recognized that emergency procedures would likely include detailed personnel verification that could compromise her carefully constructed cover identity. As Marines filed out of the training room toward designated assembly areas, Madison found herself moving alongside Rebecca and other recruits while maintaining awareness of the observation team's location and potential surveillance activities. "What do you think this is about?" Rebecca whispered, her nervous energy elevated by uncertainty about the developing situation. "Probably routine security exercise," Madison replied, though her own assessment suggested something more significant than training protocols. Military facilities run these kinds of drills regularly to test response procedures. But the radio traffic Madison was monitoring through enhanced hearing suggested genuine emergency rather than planned exercise. References to compromised communications and potential infiltration indicated security breaches requiring immediate investigation and containment measures. The assembly area was the facility's main courtyard, a space large enough to accommodate hundreds of personnel while providing clear sight lines for security oversight. Marines arranged themselves in formation according to unit assignments, while facility security conducted systematic accountability verification. Madison positioned herself within the formation while maintaining subtle observation of escape routes and potential extraction points. Her encrypted communication device remained silent, suggesting that whatever was developing had not yet reached the attention of her operational support network. Commander Hayes took position at the front of the formation, his expression reflecting the seriousness of whatever intelligence he had received through secure channels. Dr. Mitchell and Colonel Parker flanked his position, their presence lending additional weight to the developing situation. "We have received intelligence indicating potential security compromise affecting classified training operations," Hayes announced, his voice carrying clearly across the assembled formation. "All personnel will undergo enhanced verification procedures to ensure facility security and operational integrity." The announcement confirmed Madison's assessment that events were moving beyond routine emergency protocols. Enhanced verification would likely include background checks, biometric scanning, and detailed questioning that could expose her cover identity within minutes. "Verification will be conducted by alphabetical order," Hayes continued, consulting a tablet computer displaying personnel rosters. "Anderson through Davis report to Building Alpha for immediate processing." Madison's position in the alphabetical sequence provided temporary reprieve while creating pressure to develop contingency plans for inevitable discovery. She estimated 15 to 20 minutes before her turn for verification, time that could be used for operational adjustment or emergency extraction if necessary. As the first group of Marines moved toward Building Alpha, Madison noticed increased security presence throughout the courtyard. Additional personnel had arrived wearing civilian clothes, but carrying themselves with military bearing that suggested intelligence or law enforcement background. "Cross!" a voice called from behind her position in the formation. Madison turned to find Blake Miller, the technical specialist, approaching with tablet computer and scanner equipment. "You've been selected for priority verification due to recent placement evaluation recommendations." The selection removed her temporary reprieve while forcing immediate decision about operational priorities. Madison recognized that verification procedures would expose her cover identity within minutes, making continued concealment impossible regardless of her response choices. "Of course," Madison replied with appropriate professional compliance, though her mind was rapidly calculating tactical options and extraction possibilities. "Where should I report for processing?" Blake gestured toward a temporary facility that had been established near Building Alpha, equipped with sophisticated scanning equipment and staffed by personnel whose security clearances extended far beyond normal Marine training requirements. As Madison walked toward the verification station, her encrypted communication device activated with emergency protocols indicating that her operational support network had become aware of the developing situation. The brief message provided authorization for immediate action if cover exposure became unavoidable. Situation acknowledged, full authorization granted for necessary measures. Extraction team standing by. Complete mission objectives if possible. The communication deleted itself automatically, leaving Madison with clear understanding that her operational priorities had shifted from concealment to mission completion regardless of exposure risks. Specialized military life insurance covers combat injuries, PTSD treatment, and family education benefits for high-risk classified operations personnel. The verification station was equipped with biometric scanners, database terminals, and communication equipment that suggested direct connections to intelligence community networks. Personnel operating the equipment wore civilian clothes but moved with professional efficiency that characterized intelligence operatives conducting sensitive investigations. Please provide identification documents and submit to biometric scanning, the lead technician announced, his tone professionally neutral despite the obviously enhanced security protocols being implemented. Madison handed over her carefully constructed identification while submitting to fingerprint and retinal scanning, knowing that the biometric data would expose her true identity within seconds once cross-referenced against appropriate databases. The scanning process proceeded with mechanical efficiency while computer systems processed her biometric data against classification levels extending far beyond routine personnel verification. Madison maintained composed demeanor while internally preparing for tactical response to inevitable discovery. Interesting, the technician announced after several minutes of database analysis, his expression shifting to heightened attention. Cross, Madison Elizabeth. Official records indicate civilian background with no military service history. He paused, consulting additional screens displaying information that wasn't visible to casual observation. However, biometric analysis indicates matches with classified databases requiring specialized authorization to access. The announcement confirmed Madison's assessment that her cover identity was about to be completely compromised. She recognized that continued deception would be impossible, while understanding that mission completion might still be achievable through direct action. Dr. Mitchell approached the verification station with Colonel Parker, their expressions reflecting awareness that the investigation had reached critical juncture. What specific classifications are being indicated by the database matches? That information requires clearance levels beyond my authorization, the technician replied, though his expression suggested the classifications were significant. The system is requesting immediate contact with specialized verification authorities. The delay provided Madison with opportunity for tactical assessment while creating pressure for decision about operational priorities. She could attempt continued concealment through additional deception, or she could use the emerging situation to advance her actual mission objectives. Before she could make that decision, the choice was removed from her control by events developing elsewhere in the facility. Urgent radio traffic indicated that security teams had discovered evidence of actual infiltration, communications equipment hidden in areas accessible only to personnel with appropriate clearances. Hayes's voice crackled through facility speakers with emergency authority that commanded immediate attention from all personnel. All security teams report to Station 7 immediately. We have confirmed security breach, requiring immediate containment and investigation. The announcement shifted attention away from individual verification toward facility-wide security response, providing Madison with temporary distraction that could be used for tactical advantage. She recognized that the developing situation might provide cover for actions that would otherwise be impossible. As security personnel began rapid redeployment toward the identified breach location, Madison made her decision about operational priorities. The mission that had brought her to Quantico was reaching critical phase, and continued concealment was becoming secondary to objective completion. Dr. Mitchell, Madison said, her voice carrying subtle but unmistakable shift in tone that suggested fundamental change in situation dynamics. I believe we need to discuss my actual background and the reasons for my presence at this facility. The statement drew immediate attention from everyone within hearing range, their expressions reflecting recognition that something significant was about to be revealed. Dr. Mitchell's eyes sharpened with professional interest, while Colonel Parker's posture shifted to alert readiness. I'm listening, Dr. Mitchell replied carefully, her tone suggesting awareness that they had reached crucial juncture in whatever investigation was proceeding. Madison took a deep breath, recognizing that her next words would fundamentally alter the situation for everyone involved. The careful balance she had maintained between concealment and mission advancement was about to collapse entirely, forcing revelation that would change everything. My name is Lieutenant Madison Cross, United States Navy, she announced with quiet authority that carried clearly despite the background noise of security operations. Serial number classification requires specialized authorization to verify. I'm here on classified assignment to investigate security breaches affecting naval special warfare operations. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant sounds of security teams conducting rapid response procedures. Every person within hearing range recognized they had just witnessed fundamental shift in situation dynamics. Dr. Mitchell's expression cycled through surprise, comprehension, and what appeared to be relief that explanations were finally being provided. Colonel Parker's reaction suggested that he had been expecting something along these lines, though perhaps not the specific details being revealed. "Lieutenant Cross," Dr. Mitchell said after several moments of processing the revelation, "I assume you have appropriate authorization documentation for your operational status." Madison reached carefully into her jacket, retrieving credentials that had been concealed among her regulation equipment throughout her time at the facility. The documentation that emerged was clearly different from anything typically associated with Marine training personnel. "Special Warfare Operations Clearance, authorized by Naval Intelligence Command," Madison announced, displaying credentials that included authentication codes and security features recognizable to personnel with appropriate clearance levels. Colonel Parker examined the documentation with professional attention to security details that would identify authentic versus fraudulent credentials. His expression reflected growing understanding of the complexity of whatever situation had been developing at Quantico. "The security breach you've discovered," Madison continued, "is connected to classified information theft affecting multiple special operations units. My mission was to identify the source and scope of the compromise while maintaining operational security." The explanation provided context for her presence while raising additional questions about the scope and implications of whatever investigation was proceeding. Dr. Mitchell exchanged meaningful glances with Colonel Parker before responding. "Lieutenant, the timing of your revelation coincides with our discovery of communications equipment that appears to be conducting unauthorized intelligence gathering," Dr. Mitchell observed. "Are these events connected?" "Yes," Madison confirmed, her tone reflecting professional certainty about operational connections that others were only beginning to understand. "The equipment you've found is likely part of a network conducting systematic intelligence theft, targeting special operations training and operational procedures." Before the conversation could continue, approaching footsteps announced the arrival of additional personnel whose presence suggested escalation to higher levels of command authority. Master Sergeant Rodriguez appeared accompanied by military police and additional civilian personnel whose security clearances were clearly significant. "Lieutenant Cross," Rodriguez announced, his tone reflecting professional recognition of Madison's revealed status while maintaining command authority over facility operations. "We've discovered the communications equipment you mentioned. It was concealed in areas requiring specialized access credentials." The discovery confirmed Madison's operational assessment while raising questions about the scope of infiltration that had been operating at Quantico. She recognized that her mission was entering its final phases, with revelation of intelligence gathering activities requiring immediate containment and investigation. "Sergeant," Madison replied with appropriate military courtesy, despite her higher rank and specialized assignment, "the equipment location and sophistication will help identify personnel responsible for the security compromise. We need to secure all evidence while preventing further intelligence theft." Rodriguez nodded with professional understanding, though his expression reflected the complexity of managing situation involving classified operations within training environment. "Ma'am, we've established security perimeter and are maintaining evidence integrity pending arrival of specialized investigation teams." The conversation was interrupted by sudden commotion from the direction of Building Charlie, where urgent radio traffic indicated developing confrontation involving personnel attempting to leave the facility during security lockdown procedures. Security teams were reporting resistance to detention from individuals whose behavior suggested involvement in unauthorized activities. "All units respond to Building Charlie," Hayes's voice announced through facility speakers. "We have personnel attempting unauthorized departure during security procedures. Detained for investigation, pending clearance verification." Madison recognized that events were reaching critical juncture, with the security compromise investigation exposing personnel whose activities confirmed her operational assessment. The timing suggested that her mission was approaching successful completion, despite the complications arising from cover exposure. "Dr. Mitchell, Colonel Parker," Madison announced with quiet authority that commanded attention despite the developing emergency situation. I recommend immediate lockdown of all facility communications and transportation to prevent intelligence compromise during investigation procedures. Her suggestion carried professional weight of someone with specialized experience in counterintelligence operations, while the developing situation provided evidence supporting her assessment of security threats. As security teams responded to Building Charlie, Madison found herself positioned between her original mission objectives and the rapidly evolving investigation that was exposing the intelligence gathering network she had been sent to identify. The careful balance that had characterized her operational approach was no longer necessary, allowing her to function openly as the naval intelligence operative she actually was, while completing mission objectives that had brought her to Quantico. But the revelation of her true identity created new tactical considerations, including the need to protect operational security for other intelligence assets while ensuring successful completion of counterintelligence objectives that affected national security interests. As the situation developed around Building Charlie, Madison prepared to transition from covert investigation to active operational support for security teams, conducting evidence gathering and personnel detention procedures. The mission that had begun with careful concealment was about to conclude with direct action, and everyone involved would discover exactly what happened when classified intelligence operations collided with security breaches affecting military training environments. The sound of approaching vehicles announced the arrival of specialized investigation teams whose presence would escalate the situation to levels requiring the highest security classifications and operational coordination. Madison's mission was entering its final phase, and the careful balance between concealment and capability demonstration that had characterized her time at Quantico was about to shift dramatically toward operational completion, regardless of exposure risks or tactical complications. The emergency response at Building Charlie revealed the scope of the intelligence gathering operation that Madison had been sent to investigate. Security teams reported discovering multiple personnel attempting to evacuate classified communications equipment during the facility lockdown, their actions confirming systematic intelligence theft rather than isolated security breach. Lieutenant Cross, Commander Hayes announced as he arrived at the verification station with updated intelligence from the developing situation. Your operational assessment appears to be confirmed by evidence we're uncovering. We need your expertise to coordinate investigation procedures. Madison recognized that her mission had successfully transitioned from covert investigation to active operational support, allowing her to function openly as the naval intelligence specialist she actually was while completing objectives that affected national security interests. Commander, Madison replied with professional authority that reflected her actual rank and specialized training. The personnel attempting evacuation are likely part of intelligence gathering network extending beyond this facility. We need to secure all communications equipment while preventing further intelligence compromise. The coordination that followed demonstrated the effectiveness of Madison's investigation while revealing the scope of security threats that had been operating within military training environments. Her careful observation and assessment during the previous 48 hours provided critical intelligence about personnel, procedures, and security vulnerabilities that had enabled systematic information theft. Dr. Mitchell assumed coordination role for interagency investigation procedures, her authority reflecting intelligence community responsibility for counterintelligence operations affecting military training security. Colonel Parker provided military operational support, his special operations background enabling effective coordination with security teams conducting evidence gathering. Lieutenant, Dr. Mitchell announced after reviewing initial investigation findings, your operational success in identifying and exposing this intelligence gathering network represents exceptional performance under challenging circumstances. The information you've provided will enable comprehensive investigation and security improvements. Madison's mission was reaching successful completion, despite the complications arising from cover exposure and operational revelation. The intelligence gathering network she had been sent to investigate was being systematically dismantled, with personnel detained and equipment secured for analysis by specialized counterintelligence teams. But as security operations continued throughout the facility, Madison became aware of additional tactical considerations that extended beyond her original mission parameters. The scope of intelligence compromise suggested coordination with external organizations whose activities might affect other military installations and training programs. Dr. Mitchell, Madison observed as investigation procedures continued around them. The sophistication of this operation suggests resources and coordination extending beyond individual initiative. We should consider broader security implications for other military training facilities. Her assessment reflected professional understanding of intelligence operations while identifying potential security threats requiring investigation beyond Quantico. The successful completion of her mission provided foundation for expanded counterintelligence activities protecting military training security. As afternoon transitioned toward evening, the investigation had revealed extensive intelligence gathering activities affecting multiple aspects of military training operations. Personnel detention and evidence analysis confirmed systematic information theft, targeting special operations procedures, training methodologies, and personnel capabilities. Madison's role had evolved from covert operative to operational coordinator, her specialized training and investigation success positioning her to support expanded counterintelligence activities protecting national security interests. The careful concealment that had characterized her initial approach to the mission was no longer necessary, allowing her to function openly as the naval intelligence specialist whose expertise had enabled successful identification and exposure of security threats affecting military training environments. Mind completely blown? Check out the video linked in the description about another undercover warrior who shocked an entire military installation. Once you see these hidden heroes in action, you'll be obsessed with finding more stories like this. Military legal consultants provide confidential UCMJ guidance for security clearance reviews and classified operation incident proceedings. But even as her primary mission reached successful completion, Madison remained aware of broader operational considerations affecting special operations security. The intelligence gathering network she had exposed represented one component of potentially larger threats requiring ongoing investigation and counterintelligence activities. As security teams completed evidence gathering and personnel processing, Madison prepared for transition to expanded operational responsibilities that would extend her mission beyond Quantico to other military installations potentially affected by similar intelligence gathering activities. The mission that had begun with careful infiltration and concealment was concluding with operational success that would enable broader counterintelligence activities protecting military training, security, and special operations effectiveness. Madison's revealed identity as Lieutenant Madison Cross, Naval Intelligence, provided foundation for continued operational activities while establishing her credibility as specialized operative whose expertise would support expanded security investigations. The investigation at Quantico had revealed security vulnerabilities and intelligence gathering activities that required systematic response, with Madison's successful mission providing blueprint for counterintelligence operations, protecting military training environments from similar threats. As evening approached, the scope of investigation activities had expanded to include coordination with other military installations and intelligence agencies whose resources would support comprehensive response to identified security threats. Madison's operational success had enabled identification and exposure of intelligence gathering network, affecting military training security, while her revealed expertise positioned her to support expanded counterintelligence activities protecting national security interests. The careful balance between concealment and capability demonstration that had characterized her initial approach was no longer necessary, allowing her to function openly as the naval intelligence specialist whose training and experience would support continued operational activities. But as investigation procedures continued, Madison became aware that her mission success had created new operational opportunities requiring specialized expertise in counterintelligence activities affecting military training, security, and special operations effectiveness. The following morning brought arrival of specialized investigation teams whose authority and resources enabled comprehensive response to security threats identified through Madison's operational activities. Intelligence community coordination expanded investigation beyond Quantico to other military installations potentially affected by similar intelligence gathering networks. Madison found herself assigned to coordinate counterintelligence activities, protecting military training security, her operational success at Quantico, providing foundation for expanded responsibilities affecting national security interests. Lieutenant Cross, Dr. Mitchell announced during morning briefing procedures, your operational performance has earned recommendation for specialized assignment coordinating counterintelligence activities at multiple military training facilities. Your expertise will support systematic security improvements, protecting special operations training and personnel. The assignment represented recognition of Madison's operational capabilities while providing opportunity for continued service protecting military training environments from intelligence-gathering threats that could affect national security interests. Madison's mission at Quantico had reached successful completion with identification and exposure of security threats affecting military training operations, while her revealed expertise positioned her for expanded operational responsibilities requiring specialized counterintelligence capabilities. As investigation procedures continued, the scope of intelligence-gathering activities revealed through Madison's mission suggested coordination with external organizations whose activities required ongoing counterintelligence response, protecting military training security. The careful infiltration and investigation that had characterized Madison's initial approach had enabled successful identification of security threats while establishing her credibility as specialized operative whose expertise would support expanded protection activities. But even as her primary mission concluded successfully, Madison remained aware of broader operational considerations affecting military training, security, and special operations effectiveness that would require continued counterintelligence activities. The network of personnel and equipment that had been conducting intelligence gathering at Quantico represented one component of potentially larger threats requiring systematic investigation and response protecting military training environments from future compromise. Madison's operational success provided foundation for expanded counterintelligence activities while establishing her expertise in specialized operations, protecting national security interests through systematic security improvements at military training facilities. The mission that had begun with careful concealment and investigation was concluding with operational success that would enable broader counterintelligence activities, protecting military training, security, and special operations effectiveness from intelligence-gathering threats. As morning briefing procedures concluded, Madison prepared for transition to expanded operational responsibilities, requiring specialized expertise in counterintelligence activities, protecting military training environments from security threats affecting national security interests. 3 weeks after the investigation concluded, the consequences were still rippling outward through military and intelligence communities. The intelligence-gathering network that Madison had identified and exposed had been systematically dismantled, with personnel prosecuted and equipment analyzed for intelligence value and operational capabilities. Brick Mason and Wade Garrison faced courts-martial for involvement in intelligence-gathering activities that had compromised classified training operations. Their harassment of Madison had actually been part of systematic intimidation, designed to discourage investigation of security breaches they had been facilitating through their access to training operations. Finn Crawford received commendation for providing intelligence that supported investigation activities, his moral courage in questioning group dynamics having positioned him to observe and report suspicious activities affecting facility security. Rebecca Chase earned recognition for protective actions that had unknowingly provided cover for Madison's investigation activities, her friendship and support having enabled operational success through protection of Madison's concealment efforts. The facility security improvements implemented following the investigation had been adopted as standard procedures for military training environments, with Madison's operational methods providing blueprint for counterintelligence activities, protecting special operations training from intelligence-gathering threats. Commander Hayes received promotion and specialized assignment, coordinating security operations at multiple military training facilities. His professional handling of the investigation, having demonstrated capabilities required for expanded responsibilities, protecting national security interests. Dr. Ellis's medical assessment procedures had been enhanced to include specialized protocols for identifying personnel with capabilities inconsistent with documented backgrounds. His professional observations having contributed to investigation success. Blake Miller's technical analysis capabilities earned him assignment to specialized counterintelligence teams. His expertise in database analysis and communications monitoring providing valuable support for ongoing security investigations. Master Gunnery Sergeant Williams's training assessment procedures had been expanded to include specialized protocols for identifying personnel with advanced capabilities, requiring additional evaluation, her professional observations having supported investigation success. Master Sergeant Rodriguez received commendation for professional handling of training assessment procedures that had provided cover for investigation activities while maintaining operational security throughout the mission. The investigation had revealed intelligence gathering activities affecting multiple military installations, with Madison's operational success at Quantico providing foundation for expanded counterintelligence activities, protecting military training, security nationwide. Personnel prosecution and security improvements had been implemented systematically across military training environments, with Madison's investigation methods providing standard procedures for identifying and exposing intelligence-gathering threats affecting national security interests. The careful balance between investigation and concealment that had characterized Madison's operational approach had been documented as standard methodology for counterintelligence activities in military training environments requiring specialized operational security. 6 months later, Madison's expanded operational responsibilities included coordination of counterintelligence activities at 17 military training facilities, her expertise in specialized investigation, protecting special operations training from intelligence gathering threats affecting national security. The network of security improvements and investigation protocols developed through her mission at Quantico had been implemented across military training environments, providing systematic protection from intelligence gathering activities that could compromise special operations effectiveness. Madison's revealed identity as Naval Intelligence Specialist had enabled continued operational activities supporting military training security while establishing her credibility as expert in counterintelligence operations, protecting national security interests. But even as her operational responsibilities expanded, Madison remained aware of ongoing security threats requiring systematic investigation and response protecting military training environments from intelligence gathering activities that could affect special operations capabilities. The success of her mission at Quantico had provided foundation for broader counterintelligence activities while establishing procedures and protocols protecting military training, security from systematic intelligence gathering threats. As she prepared for deployment to investigate potential security breaches at Marine Special Operations training facilities on the West Coast, Madison reflected on the operational lessons learned through her mission at Quantico and their application to expanded counterintelligence responsibilities. The careful balance between concealment and investigation that had enabled her operational success would continue to be essential for protecting military training, security from intelligence gathering, threats affecting national security interests. 1 year after the Quantico investigation, the broader implications of Madison's mission continued to affect military training security and counterintelligence activities, protecting special operations effectiveness from systematic intelligence gathering threats. The investigation methods and security improvements developed through her operational success had been adopted across military training environments, providing comprehensive protection from intelligence gathering activities that could compromise national security interests. Madison's expertise in specialized counterintelligence operations had earned her assignment to coordinate security activities, protecting military training facilities from systematic threats requiring ongoing investigation and response procedures. The network of personnel and procedures that had been conducting intelligence gathering at Quantico had been identified as part of broader threats affecting multiple military installations, with Madison's investigation success providing foundation for comprehensive counterintelligence response. The operational security methods and investigation protocols developed through her mission had been documented as standard procedures for protecting military training environments from intelligence gathering activities that could affect special operations capabilities. But as her expanded responsibilities continued, Madison remained aware that intelligence gathering threats affecting military training security required ongoing counterintelligence activities, protecting national security interests through systematic investigation and response procedures. The success of her mission at Quantico had established her credibility as specialist in counterintelligence operations, while providing operational methods that continued to protect military training security from systematic intelligence gathering threats. As she reviewed intelligence reports indicating potential security breaches at additional military training facilities, Madison prepared for continued operational activities requiring specialized expertise in counterintelligence investigation and response procedures. The mission that had begun with careful infiltration at Quantico had evolved into expanded responsibilities, protecting military training, security from intelligence gathering, threats affecting national security interests, through systematic counterintelligence activities. On a gray Tuesday morning 2 years after the Quantico investigation, Madison sat in her secure office at Naval Intelligence Command, reviewing classified reports that painted a troubling picture of intelligence gathering activities, targeting military training facilities across multiple geographic regions. Her computer screens displayed information that officially didn't exist: communication intercepts, surveillance reports, and analytical assessments indicating coordinated intelligence operations extending far beyond the network she had exposed at Quantico. The phone on her desk rang, with the distinctive tone indicating secure communication from the highest levels of intelligence community authority. The conversation that followed would determine her next operational assignment while confirming her assessment of ongoing security threats. Lieutenant Cross, this is regarding intelligence indicating expanded intelligence gathering activities targeting special operations training facilities, the voice announced with the professional neutrality that characterized classified briefings. Your expertise is requested for coordination of counterintelligence response requiring immediate deployment. Madison recognized the operational language, while understanding that her successful mission at Quantico had established her as specialist in protecting military training security from systematic intelligence gathering, threats requiring specialized investigation and response capabilities. Understood, Madison replied with professional acceptance of expanded operational responsibilities. What specific facilities and time frame are we discussing? Multiple West Coast installations showing indicators consistent with Quantico patterns. Deployment authorization approved for immediate response. Mission parameters will be provided through secure channels upon arrival. The communication terminated, leaving Madison with understanding that her expertise in counterintelligence operations, protecting military training security, would support expanded activities requiring specialized investigation and response procedures. As she prepared for deployment to investigate potential security breaches affecting special operations training facilities, Madison reflected on the operational lessons learned through her mission at Quantico and their continued application to protecting national security interests. The careful balance between investigation and operational security that had enabled her success would continue to be essential for identifying and exposing intelligence gathering threats affecting military training environments requiring systematic counterintelligence protection. 3 hours later, Madison boarded a military transport aircraft bound for Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, where intelligence indicators suggested the presence of intelligence gathering activities similar to those she had successfully investigated and exposed at Quantico. The mission that had begun with her careful infiltration of marine training facilities was expanding into broader operational responsibilities, protecting military training, security from systematic intelligence gathering, threats affecting national security interests. But as her aircraft lifted off from Andrews Air Force Base, Madison's encrypted communication device activated with a message that would fundamentally alter her understanding of the scope and implications of the intelligence gathering activities she had been investigating. Lieutenant Cross, recent intelligence analysis indicates intelligence gathering network extends beyond military training facilities to include operational deployment information affecting active special operations missions. Your investigation success positioned you to coordinate expanded counterintelligence activities requiring immediate operational response. The message deleted itself automatically, leaving Madison with recognition that her expertise in counterintelligence operations had qualified her for responsibilities extending beyond military training, security to protection of active special operations missions from intelligence gathering threats affecting national security. As her aircraft approached the California coast, Madison prepared for expanded operational activities requiring specialized expertise in counterintelligence investigation, while understanding that her mission success had positioned her to protect national security interests through systematic response to intelligence gathering threats. The investigation methods and operational security procedures she had developed through her mission at Quantico would continue to support counterintelligence activities protecting military training and operational security from systematic intelligence gathering threats, requiring ongoing investigation and response. But the expanded scope of intelligence gathering activities suggested coordination and resources extending far beyond individual initiative, requiring comprehensive counterintelligence response, protecting national security interests from threats whose implications continued to expand beyond initial assessment. Madison's expertise in specialized counterintelligence operations had positioned her to coordinate systematic response to intelligence-gathering threats, affecting military training and operational security, while her operational success provided foundation for expanded activities protecting national security interests. As her aircraft began final approach to Camp Pendleton, Madison reviewed classified briefing materials indicating the scope and complexity of intelligence-gathering activities requiring immediate investigation and systematic counterintelligence response, protecting special operations security from threats affecting national security interests. The mission that had begun with her careful concealment at Quantico was evolving into expanded responsibilities, requiring specialized expertise in counterintelligence operations, protecting military training and operational security from systematic intelligence gathering, threats whose scope continued to require ongoing investigation and response. 6 months after her deployment to Camp Pendleton, Madison's investigation had revealed intelligence gathering activities extending across multiple military installations, while coordinated through networks requiring resources and expertise, suggesting state-sponsored intelligence operations affecting national security interests. The counterintelligence response she had coordinated had successfully identified and disrupted intelligence-gathering networks while implementing security improvements, protecting military training and operational security from systematic threats requiring ongoing investigation and response procedures. Madison's expertise in specialized counterintelligence operations had earned her promotion to lieutenant commander, while expanding her responsibilities to coordinate protections activities at military installations nationwide, requiring systematic response to intelligence gathering, threats affecting national security. But even as her operational success continued, Madison remained aware that intelligence gathering threats affecting military training and operational security required ongoing counterintelligence activities, protecting national security interests through systematic investigation and response procedures extending beyond individual missions. The investigation methods and operational security procedures she had developed through her missions at Quantico and Camp Pendleton had been adopted as standard protocols for protecting military installations from intelligence-gathering activities requiring specialized counterintelligence response. As she prepared for assignment to coordinate counterintelligence activities protecting special operations training and deployment security from systematic intelligence-gathering threats, Madison reflected on the operational evolution that had begun with her careful infiltration at Marine Corps Base Quantico. The mission that had started with concealment and investigation had expanded into comprehensive responsibilities, protecting national security interests from intelligence gathering, threats requiring systematic counterintelligence activities coordinated across military installations nationwide. On a secure video conference with intelligence community leadership, Madison received briefing on expanded operational responsibilities, requiring specialized expertise in counterintelligence activities, protecting military training and operational security from systematic threats whose scope continued to require comprehensive investigation and response. Commander Cross, the briefing officer announced with recognition of her promoted rank and expanded responsibilities. Your operational success has qualified you to coordinate counterintelligence activities protecting special operations, training, and deployment security from intelligence gathering. Threats requiring systematic response across military installations nationwide. Madison accepted the assignment with professional understanding of her expanded responsibilities, while recognizing that her expertise in counterintelligence operations would support comprehensive protection of national security interests, from systematic intelligence gathering, threats requiring ongoing investigation and response. The operational methods and security procedures she had developed through her missions would continue to support counterintelligence activities protecting military training and operational security from systematic threats requiring specialized investigation and response procedures. But as her responsibilities expanded, Madison remained aware that protecting national security interests from intelligence-gathering threats would require ongoing counterintelligence activities, extending beyond individual missions to comprehensive systematic response, coordinated across military installations and intelligence agencies. The investigation that had begun with her careful infiltration at Quantico had evolved into expanded operational responsibilities protecting national security interests from intelligence-gathering threats, whose scope required systematic counterintelligence activities coordinated through specialized expertise and resources. As she concluded the secure briefing and prepared for expanded operational deployment, Madison understood that her mission had successfully evolved from individual investigation to comprehensive responsibilities protecting national security interests through systematic counterintelligence activities requiring ongoing specialized expertise. The story that had begun with 3 Marines cornering a beautiful blonde woman in a military barracks had revealed systematic intelligence-gathering threats requiring comprehensive counterintelligence response, protecting national security interests through specialized operational activities coordinated across military installations nationwide. Madison's expertise in counterintelligence operations had positioned her to coordinate systematic protection of military training and operational security from intelligence-gathering threats whose scope required ongoing investigation and response procedures protecting national security interests through specialized activities extending far beyond individual missions. But even as her responsibilities expanded to encompass counterintelligence coordination at the highest levels, Madison remained the same operative who had successfully infiltrated Quantico through careful balance of concealment and investigation, her specialized expertise continuing to protect national security interests from systematic intelligence-gathering threats requiring ongoing response. The mission that had begun in Building Charlie at Marine Corps Base Quantico had evolved into comprehensive operational responsibilities, protecting national security interests from intelligence-gathering threats whose scope required systematic counterintelligence activities coordinated through specialized expertise and resources extending across military installations and intelligence agencies nationwide. As Madison prepared for her next deployment, coordinating counterintelligence activities protecting special operations security from systematic intelligence-gathering threats, she reflected on the operational journey that had transformed her from covert investigator to senior counterintelligence coordinator, responsible for protecting national security interests through specialized activities requiring comprehensive, systematic response. The operational success that had begun with her careful infiltration and investigation at Quantico continued through expanded responsibilities protecting military training and operational security from intelligence gathering. Threats requiring ongoing counterintelligence activities, coordinated through specialized expertise, developed through operational experience protecting national security interests. In her final report to Naval Intelligence Command, Madison documented the operational evolution that had transformed individual investigation into comprehensive counterintelligence activities, protecting national security interests from systematic intelligence gathering. Threats requiring specialized response coordinated across military installations and intelligence agencies nationwide. The mission that had begun with concealment and investigation had successfully expanded into operational responsibilities, protecting military training and operational security from systematic threats whose scope required ongoing counterintelligence activities coordinated through specialized expertise, protecting national security interests through comprehensive systematic response. But as her report concluded and she prepared for continued operational deployment, Madison remained aware that protecting national security interests from intelligence-gathering threats would require ongoing counterintelligence activities, extending beyond completed missions, to comprehensive systematic response, coordinated through specialized expertise, developed through operational experience, protecting military training and operational security. The investigation that had begun at Marine Corps Base Quantico had successfully evolved into expanded responsibilities requiring specialized counterintelligence expertise protecting national security interests from systematic intelligence-gathering threats, whose scope continued to require ongoing investigation and response procedures coordinated across military installations and intelligence agencies. Madison's operational success had established her expertise in counterintelligence activities while providing foundation for expanded responsibilities, protecting military training and operational security from systematic threats requiring comprehensive, systematic response, coordinated through specialized expertise, protecting national security interests. As she boarded her next deployment aircraft, Madison carried with her the operational knowledge and expertise developed through missions protecting national security interests from intelligence gathering. Threats requiring systematic counterintelligence response, coordinated through specialized activities, extending across military installations and intelligence agencies nationwide. The story that had begun with harassment in a military barracks had revealed and successfully countered systematic intelligence gathering threats, protecting national security interests through counterintelligence activities requiring specialized expertise, developed through operational experience, coordinating comprehensive, systematic response across military installations, protecting special operations training, and deployment security. Madison's mission was complete, but her operational responsibilities continued through expanded activities, protecting national security interests from intelligence gathering. Threats requiring ongoing systematic counterintelligence response, coordinated through specialized expertise, protecting military training and operational security from threats whose scope extended far beyond individual missions, to comprehensive protection requiring ongoing investigation and response procedures. The operational success that had begun with her careful infiltration at Quantico had evolved into comprehensive counterintelligence responsibilities protecting national security interests through systematic response to intelligence gathering. Threats requiring specialized expertise, coordinated across military installations and intelligence agencies, protecting special operations training and deployment security from systematic threats affecting national security interests.